This video is sponsored by Boomslang. Stick around to find out more. Fire Punch is a series that is incredibly difficult for me to describe in words because I feel like nothing I can say here will ever do this story justice. So please, go read Fire Punch if you haven't, because I will be spoiling the entirety of this manga. I'm going to split this analysis into parts, talking about the different themes of Fire Punch and the central character, Agni. Now, without further delay, let's get into the topic at hand. Fire Punch takes place in barren Earth, allegedly at the hands of a monster known as the Ice Witch. This witch is one of a select few who have extraordinary talents known as blessings. Agni, the protagonist, is a kid like his sister Luna who possesses the gift of regeneration. Due to the world being frozen, food is naturally a little bit harder to come by, so in order to keep their village fed, Agni uses his arms as meat to feed them. One day, a blessed by the name of Doma comes to their town and offers to take Agni to his city, Behemdrog. Doma, disgusted by their cannibalism, incinerates the inhabitants with his invincible flames. Luna, whose regeneration is far slower in comparison to Agni's, succumbs to his flames as well, but not before pleading with Agni to live. Agni's body, which is constantly on fire, breaks down and regenerates over and over again, each time leaving him in agony. He regains control of his body after 8 years, learning how to stand, then walk, then breathe again, determined to exact revenge on Doma, pushing past the never-ending pain. But does Agni want revenge? At the start of the story, maybe, but somewhere along the line that changed, or maybe it became a bit muddy. What does Agni want? Not even he knows. And this brings us to our first talking point: finding something to live for. Death is the one thing you must never allow in. You may bear all other manner of pain and suffering, but always resist death. I'm sure throughout life, no matter how old you are, at least once you've questioned why you were put on this earth and what is your purpose for being here. You might have found your answer a long time ago, but some of you might still be searching. This is a question Fire Punch asks through its multiple characters: Agni, Judah, Doma, Sun, Togata, and even the faceless background characters that exist in this frozen over hell. Life is held to such a high standard within this story, despite how hard it gets. Each character finds some reason to continue living, despite how dire the circumstances are. Doma lives to atone for his sins by protecting life instead of taking it. There's a very big departure from when we first see Doma to when we meet him again after years had passed. He, as stated earlier, wipes out Agni's entire village. In doing so, he creates the monster that Agni had become. His blessing of fire had become a curse, because not only did it rob Agni of everything he loved, pushing him on this path of destruction, but it also robbed Doma of everything he held as well. It was karma coming back to bite him. Togata lives to create a film in the wake of losing every single film they once had in their collection. Movies became their everything, and when they lost that, they lost their will to live. But because they were blessed with regeneration, that was not something easily achieved, no matter how hard they tried. Agni changed something in them. A man made of fire breathing in a world covered in ice, a muse for Togata's inner filmmaker, a reason to keep going. Sun lives because of his admiration and worship of Agni. These things are what keep him going. Sun prayed to God, and when Agni showed up to save him, he felt as if his prayers had been answered. Agni had become a god in his eyes and had continuously saved him. A man engulfed in flames came to his aid. Surely he had to be God. If Agni was around, he had nothing to worry about, because Agni was not going to let him suffer, because Agni would not let good people suffer, and everything would be set right in this world. Now, Agni lives because it was Luna's dying words. That and the need for revenge against Doma. At least that's how it started. Like so many others, he has not found his purpose and is searching throughout the story for it, adopting multiple different identities while doing so, from big brother to hero, actor, god, villain, fire punch, and later son. Agni has been pulled in so many different directions that it alters his worldview, twisting and turning until he doesn't even know who he is, what his purpose is anymore. He lives because he is told to by many different people within the series. Despite not knowing who he is, we as readers do. He's just a boy in the body of a man, not fully grown, clinging on to the words of his dead sister. It's almost like a curse, being told to live no matter what. Agni's life becomes more than his own as he becomes a source for other people to live through the image the people around him have formed during times of uncertainty. That brings us to our second talking point. Something that immediately stands out when looking at Fire Punch is the artwork. It's so messy and oftentimes feels unfinished, but that works in its favor. It complements the atmosphere and the tone of the story. It makes the fight scenes feel more visceral, makes the world feel as decrepit and nearly unlivable as the characters make it out to be. Everything is consumed by a sea of white. It gives the story a nice touch and it works hand in hand with everything going on. A nice bit of visual storytelling, if you will. Now, I spoke about the fights, but I'd like to go into more detail. Fire Punch has some of the cleanest, most violent and jaw-dropping action I've seen in any manga. It's so easy to follow, similar to Dragon Ball. Sometimes it can get a little bit messy, but for the most part, a lot of actions comes to life on these pages. Another aspect of Tatsuki Fujimoto's artwork is the body horror elements that are found in his series. While not as grotesque as something from Junji Ito's catalog, Fujimoto does a great job of predicting a body horror with Agni. His skin melts, revealing bone as he's first lit ablaze by Doma, or even later in the series when he becomes the demon, Fire Punch. Some of these panels are bone-chilling to say the least, and it makes me yearn for Fujimoto to do a straight-up horror manga, if some of his Fire Punch and Chainsaw Man designs are to be taken into account. There's also a lot of visual storytelling within his panels. When Agni and Togata speak, the panels convey distance as Togata is yet to really open up to Agni, as the two don't view each other as equals. Agni is looking for guidance, chasing the opinions of someone he views as wiser and older than him. There's also quite a few panels that convey motion. If you were to isolate them and go through them frame by frame, it would simulate movement like a flipbook. I'll demonstrate. Right before Agni loses himself and kills Doma, these panels convey him walking through the snow as the murderous, intrusive thoughts penetrate his mind, ultimately leading to that grisly conclusion. That's enough of the artwork for now, so let's move on to our other topping point. Religion is a very touchy subject, but the way Tatsuki Fujimoto is able to incorporate it into Fire Punch is realistic, in my opinion at least. As someone religious myself, he perfectly illustrates the good and the bad. He takes the concept and often pushes it to its logical extreme as opposed to criticizing it outright. On one hand, religion brings the people of this world salvation, whether it be Behemdrog or the many followers of Agni himself. On the other hand, it shows how extreme religion can be, being used as a tool to enslave and radicalize people by preying on their weaknesses, their insecurities, by giving them something to believe in, something to fight for. Not dissimilar for how it is in real life. Both Judah and Agni parallel each other when it comes to the religious texts in Fire Punch because they are both forced to play God. If they were to stop, millions of people would die. They'd lose hope for a better tomorrow and there'd be chaos. Judah uses religion as a weapon, and while the people who follow Agni just saw him as benevolent, they too use that to become weapons of their own accord. The similarities don't stop there though. To the inhabitants of Behemdrog, Agni is seen as a devil rather than a deity, and in the view of Agni's adherents, the same is true of Judah. Sun is the ideal illustration of how radical religion may develop. After Agni saves him, he starts worshipping the man, praying to him and treating him like a god. In fact, Sun refers to Agni as such, God. And every time Agni helps him, the delusion grows as he spreads that message to everyone he meets. He also begins to take to heart the scriptures he helped write, idolizing the man and refusing to acknowledge the truth. He becomes a cult leader at this point, killing anyone who would dare question Lord Agni. Now, if we shift perspective, the weight of being a god is far too heavy for Agni or Judah to carry. We don't spend too much time with Judah, but we do with Agni as his mind is torn in different directions. His heart heavy with guilt. Becoming god, so to speak, was the straw that broke the camel's back. Let's look at a quote from Niccolo Machiavelli that perfectly encapsulates Agni's struggle as this fake messiah, this fake hero. Any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. This quote holds true because Agni has become like Doma, someone who the story from the get-go and from Agni's perspective is framed as evil, who later we learned wasn't so evil after all. But I'll get into that later. Another aspect that's apparent to me is how the word of God is interpreted. This is why religion is so very controversial within discussion, because so many different people read the same book and so many come to different conclusions. Coming from a Catholic household and being surrounded by Christian values as someone from the Caribbean, a very religious nation, I've seen so many different takes on what the Bible has said from both friends and family. It's just interesting to hear different perspectives come from the same book. I guess that's just human nature at the end of the day. Now, onto something even more controversial in my opinion than religion. I'd say mental health is in the DNA of Fire Punch, and every aspect is handled with care, from depression, split personality disorder, gender dysphoria, PTSD. Tatsuki Fujimoto touches upon all of these with such tact and nuance that it should not be ignored. Agni is at the forefront of most of these. He, from my perspective, suffers from PTSD from the time Doma burned down his village, leading him to completely black out, which triggers some sort of multiple personality disorder where he sheds his skin as Agni and becomes the demon Fire Punch, going into a blind rage, killing not only Doma but the soldiers that kidnapped La. On the other hand, also displays symptoms of survivor's guilt. He's also a bit delusional and obsessive, tricking himself into believing that Judah is in fact his dead sister Luna, and that aspect didn't really hit me until I saw him holding a deer by its neck, his face lit up with pure joy at the prospect of his so-called Luna needing him. Agni is codependent, extremely so when it comes to Luna. Now, for the second character that deals with mental health, we move on to Togata. Talking about this character kind of gave me anxiety in a sense, because I don't want to come off as offensive with what I'm about to say, and I'm not trying to get cancelled over it, but it's a pivotal talking point of this character. I believe they're a stand-in for people who suffer from something similar, gender dysphoria. Togata biologically is a woman, but they are disgusted with their body. It makes them sick to their stomach. This stems from seeing so many action heroes being men in the movies they would consume. They wanted to be just like their heroes but felt like they were being held back due to their gender. This is why Togata finds a muse in Agni, creating their own action hero as they play the role of filmmaker in the series. Near the end of Togata's arc, it's unclear whether or not they become comfortable or somewhat comfortable in their body, due to them letting Agni look at them as a big sister. Regardless of how you interpret that though, I thought it was important to mention, as it's the primary reason I haven't referred to this character by any gender while speaking about them. Togata also struggles with extreme suicidal tendencies, often trying to off themselves on a regular basis, but due to the regenerative abilities bestowed onto them, they sadly cannot die, at least with the methods they take. Agni also begins to suffer from these suicidal tendencies, leading him to try and off himself on multiple occasions, one of which by drowning, thus leading Togata to save him, as they were the only one with him at that time, leading to their own deaths, because their regenerative ability could not withstand Doma's eternal flame, only fueling Agni's obsession with living, his suicidal thoughts, and depression, among other things. Even characters like Sun dabble in this topic, with his unhealthy obsession and admiration for Agni. As I stated earlier in my religion section of this video, Sun believes the lies he told the people. He's so obsessed and beyond the point of return that he doesn't realize the person he's fighting at the end of his arc was Agni himself and not some fictional boogeyman. Boomslang is a company that creates unique anime designs, whether it be phone cases, stickers, apparel, prints, and so much more. They have hundreds of unique designs brought to you by the talented P Shinobi that fits any taste under the sun. You like mecha, you like lo-fi, maybe you like something a bit more abstract? Well, Boomslang has you covered. And with them being the first sponsor of the channel, I'm very grateful. I'm eyeing a few of their designs myself. Feel free to go down there, use my link, and use code GRIMGAMESH for 10% off your next purchase. That's all caps GRIMM_GAMESH at checkout for 10% off your next purchase. Pick yourself up whatever fits your fancy. Thank you so much for Boomslang for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to Fire Punch. Fujimoto's character writing is on full display here, as his visual storytelling and his ability to subvert our expectations in such a nuanced way is put on display. Allow me to start from the beginning, so please excuse me if I repeat points from earlier segments in this video. Our story starts on page 5 of chapter 8. Agni has finally been reunited with the man who stole everything from him 8 years ago. But something is off. Something is very off. Doma is no longer the man he was 8 years ago. The clean-cut, well-dressed, calm and collected Doma had vanished. His hair no longer neatly presented. It's unkempt and it falls all around his head, covering his ears. His face is rough and rugged, now sporting a thick, bushy beard. Agni recognizes him right away, but Doma can't recall who this man is. Despite his improved physique and strength, Agni is easily defeated by Doma. He is, however, allowed to speak. "You killed my sister." Doma is unconcerned, remarking that he didn't ask such a question, but it hit him, or does it? As Doma turns his head to ask Agni, or rather himself, if he truly did kill her, it is as if Agni is no longer present. This is when he finally realizes who this person is and the gravity of his sin. As his face softens from its cold, serious expression, he begs forgiveness. He's pitiful and terrified. He promises to do anything Agni asked, except die. Agni rushes to Doma, and a few pages later, he's burned to a crisp again. No matter how many times he regenerates or strikes, he is no match for this man, at least at this point. Our villain says something very interesting here, something that serves as foreshadowing. He won't die until he kills me. I see now. It's a curse brought onto me. Doma will appear again in chapter 17. He's a shell of his former self, even more so than in previous chapters. He's in jail, withered away, pleading for his release. Togata provides some exposition for us. Even if Fireman kills this guy, it won't bring anyone any catharsis. It won't bring any closure to have this good-natured, crazy, bearded old guy killed. He burned out before the hero could burn him. At the start of chapter 42, Agni and Doma meet for the final time. By this point, Agni had gained more strength and a better understanding of his abilities, so a clash between the two could end in Agni's favor. But, on the other hand, he isn't here to fight. He seeks purpose because he is now a leader and must lead by example. But more importantly, he seeks guidance because it's difficult to forget Doma when his body burns because of his flames every waking moment. He wants to move on, he's not sure how to. The two go fishing while having a heart-to-heart. It's here that we learn what Doma has been up to all these years. You came here to talk? So talk. Why are you fishing? Is that what you came here to ask? I have 17 children to take care of. I'm doing this to fill their bellies. I thought you'd come to kill me. I was planning to cry and beg for my life. My death would mean the death of 17 others. If we were to interpret this in a roundabout way, he's taking on the responsibility of a father to atone for his sins, which reminds me of a Gintama character I did a video on, which you should watch. Agni is looking for a new solution, but he can't simply kill Doma now because the problem is bigger than the two of them. If killing you only resulted in your death, then I'd do it. But you just said 17 other lives depend on yours. So I'll take those 17 to my village. They'll have no trouble staying fed. That way, I can kill you and only you. If you have any other reason to live, then say it now. Agni sees no problem with feeding people his flesh, claiming that no one should have died as a result of Doma's misunderstanding. It's amusing that despite everything that had happened, he's still giving Doma the benefit of the doubt. Rather than painting him as this man who murdered his village out of spite, Doma doubles down on his decision that day. What people lack in this world is not warmth, nor food, not even God. It's called education. What would happen to the people of Agni's village if he had died? The obvious answer, which Agni provides, is they'd starve to death. The notion, however, is challenged. They wouldn't die right away. Instead, something far more sinister would occur. They'd become a culture that eats humans for food. They're already desensitized to eating human meat, so they'd start killing and eating each other. The morality of Agni is called into question. Doma understands how Agni is feeling, empathizes with the guilt that he must feel after his rampage in Behemdrog. He chooses not to lecture him, however, because he has no right to. He reveals that Behemdrog would control the masses, brainwashing them into believing lies and concealing the truth. The god the people of that city worshipped was mainly a character in a film. Doma's eyes were opened by this realization. Once again, the villain is reduced to an elderly man pleading for forgiveness. Agni departs because he cannot bring himself to kill the man Doma had become. He found his purpose, to spend his life saving people, just like Doma. If this were a movie, would the hero have killed Doma? No, the hero wouldn't have killed him. The moment is quite beautiful in execution. It shows growth and development for Agni and makes what comes next even more horrifying. Agni walks through the snow as Fujimoto returns to visual storytelling. The panel simulates movement as the trauma of his home being burned and all the dead burnt bodies flashes through his mind. He sees his sister, who was smiling but is now on fire, her body twisting in agony. She died yet again. Then he sees Doma, standing before him, using his ability to engulf Agni once more in the flames that took everything from him. We see his wicked smile, followed by the man he'd grown into, surrounded by his children. This is where things get strange, as Agni appears to be having a conversation with his dead sister as he debates killing Doma. The fictitious Luna supports the decision, but Agni is opposed. Doma's a changed man and wouldn't be right. This figment of his imagination ignites a spark within him, and she begs him to transform into Fire Punch for her sake, which Agni does as his face transforms into that of a beast and we fade to black. Then we see Agni's transformation in reverse. No longer is his face that of a demon, but it's Agni again. But something is different. He's confused, as if he'd been asleep. What is revealed to us is bone-chilling, his hand piercing through a flaming body as it turns to charcoal. A few pages later, we get a spread, Agni with this body snapping in two, surrounded by nothing but ash and debris. We see bodies all burned to a crisp, littering the ground. In Agni's blind rage, he goes back to Doma's little village, killing everyone he comes across. A girl is hanging clothes on the line. He walks right through the line, setting it and then her on fire. A boy rushes to her aid. He touches her and he too is set ablaze. Agni makes his way to the house, opens the door. As Doma's remaining children watch in horror, Agni simply walks in the doorway before walking out, setting the entire house on fire. That's when he finally sees Doma, flashing back to what we had seen before. The body his arm had gone through was Doma's, as he screams in pain before meeting the same fate of his children. What I find interesting here is the difference in death between Doma's children and Doma himself. Agni does not strike his children. Even when he is attacked, he does not fight back. He simply, for lack of a better word, gently lets the carnage do the work. As for Doma, he runs, headfirst penetrating him with his arm. You can feel the malice with how he kills Doma as opposed to the others. This entire series of events is the turning point of Fire Punch. Agni's need for revenge, seemingly quenched, kickstarts so many more things moving forward. The way he ends an entire village in the same way Doma did to him is only ironic, but it feels like karma on Doma's behalf. The same flame that took away everything from Agni took away everything from Doma as well. Fire Punch is filled with symbolism, especially within its covers, so I'd like to take a look at those and try to come to conclusions based on what the story is saying and what the covers could possibly represent, giving the information. Let's look at the first 3 volumes. The characters presented are Agni, Togata, and Judah. These 3 characters sit at the core of the story and drive the plot forward. Besides Doma, Togata and Judah play a very big role in Agni's life, serving as either his guide or his resolve to continue going forward throughout the story. The first volume contains the first 8 chapters. It's Agni's origin as Fire Punch as he sets off on his quest. By the end of chapter 8, we're introduced to Togata as they take up a lot of chapters within volume 2, chapters 9 to 18. Volume 3, as you guessed it, put a lot of emphasis on Judah, following the story from chapters 19 to 28. Volume 4, 5, and 6 follow the same trend as the first 2 volumes, Agni, Togata, and Judah taking center stage yet again on the covers. Volume 4 sees Agni saddened as he holds his fist up. It follows chapters 29 to 39 as it documents the start of Agni's decline, the guilt he will soon feel for his actions, and on top of that, the weight he's forced to carry as he takes on multiple roles instead of just being himself. Volume 5 has Togata on the cover in the same pose as Agni as the volume chronicles chapter 40 to 49. A lot happens in these chapters, but the most important thing is Togata's sacrifice in chapter 48. They've grown as a character, becoming emotionally vulnerable with Agni, taking on the role of big sister, and ultimately doing something selfless, sacrificing themselves for his sake. But they echo similar final words that harken back to when Luna died at the start of the story. Live. Their face on the cover, similar to Agni, is a bit somber. Side note, chapter 49 and 13 very much reminds me of Batman holding Jason Todd in the Death of the Family storyline. Now, these facts are not only represented on the volume, but when we look at the cover and examine the color used, it also tells a similar story. Now, I've talked about color on this channel in multiple videos, so I won't go into too much detail here. I'll keep it brief. Volume 5 depicts Togata covered in green flames. The color green symbolizes many things, but in this instance, we can point to a few things that coincide with the context of the story being told within these chapters. Growth, safety, life. These 3 things I think speak volumes for what happens here. No pun intended. Togata's growth, giving her life so that Agni could continue living his own, bringing his body back to safety as he tries to drown himself. She no longer lives for herself and her own amusement. Volume 6 sees Judah in the same pose as Agni and Togata, as you can guess. This volume is primarily about her. Chapters 50 to 60. These chapters see her seemingly death and rebirth into Luna as the story takes a shift, as her and Agni rebuild life together. The color of the flames on this volume are, from what I can tell, white. Similar to green, white has a few meanings. Peacefulness, innocence, and purity are a few that come to mind. These are very apparent in this next arc, as Judah's memories are wiped. She's pure once again, innocent of all her wrongdoings, as she lives a seemingly peaceful life with Agni as Luna. The last 2 volumes, 7 and 8, take similar approaches. They go back to the first 3 volumes, in a sense where the central focus is the characters' faces. But instead of it being an individual character on the cover, it's being shared by 2 characters, Agni and Luna, as they are the central focus of these last 2 arcs. Volume 7 is interesting. On the left half, Agni is looking down as his face sinks into darkness. Contrasting this is Judah, as her features are fully lit as she's looking upwards. The volume contains chapters 61 to 71, and the cover pretty much summarizes everything that's going to happen in this volume. Agni loses himself as his mental state crumbles, trying to end himself every single day for the past 10 years, but is not able to. Judah, on the other hand, is living as Luna, trying to hold Agni together, but by the end of this volume is about to take responsibility for the life she had lived 10 years ago prior as Judah, as the false god of Behemdrog. Volume 8 carries over the same theme as the previous volume. This time Agni is the one looking upward and Judah is the one sinking. Agni's face is engulfed in flames. The cover depicts him becoming Fire Punch, and this volume has chapters 72 to 83. And again, the cover tells the story of what's happening within the volume. Agni's final confrontation with Sun as he becomes the monster Fire Punch, and Judah's eventual sacrifice becoming an actual god, wiping Agni's memories and his power so that he can live a normal life as she looks after the earth, keeping it as safe as she can for his sake. When it's all said and done, one question comes to mind at the end. What is Fire Punch trying to say? What is it about? On the surface, it could be read as a very depressing and often nihilistic story. Why do the characters keep going? What purpose do they serve if the end is so bleak? But that's only the surface. Fire Punch is about something more cliche, the human condition. In fictional stories and sometimes even in real life, humans, creatures who never give up. They continue going on no matter how hard it becomes. This is demonstrated with a lot of characters, Agni for example, and even Judah. But I'd like to ignore them to turn to another character that's been here since the early part of the story, Minato. She starts a series as a 13-year-old girl who runs away from home. She witnesses all of the horrors of this world, being traumatized, losing her friends, knowing the truth and the suffering of Agni, and yet she continues to live despite all of this. Even taking in Agni as her own and naming him son at the end of the story after he loses his memories, and raising him as her son as she eventually dies of old age. Now, why is Minato so important? The main reason she stands out is for the fact that she is not blessed. She never was. She has no power to defend herself, yet she remains pure throughout the series, untainted, and was able to get past all the horrors she had seen, and even forgiving Agni and held no grudges against him. It's a shame that her wiki page has basically nothing about her. She is really a standout and underrated character in the series. Fire Punch is honestly an amazing series, and it doesn't get as much love as it deserves. Mappa had made it clear that they'd love to animate more Tatsuki Fujimoto's works after Chainsaw Man, and I'd love for Fire Punch to get an anime adaptation so it's exposed to the wider world. Now, I've hinted in some of my videos that I believe Fire Punch is a much better story than Chainsaw Man, but as I finish the script, I'm not too sure about that. Fire Punch is great. It's quite complex in many aspects, but some things aren't explained, like why do Judah, Luna, Sun, and the Ice Witch all look the same, and the ending is a bit crazy in itself. It's a story that gets very abstract a lot of times. Chainsaw Man can also be abstract in the storytelling as well, but not to the extent of Fire Punch. I don't want to compare these two stories any more than I already have. Fire Punch to me is a masterpiece. It does a lot of things extremely well, and I'm glad I sat down to read it. This is Grimtoki. This has been Beyond Animation. If you like anything I had to say, please like, comment, and subscribe. Those things greatly help out the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy.
You can feel it in the streets. On a day like this, they heat it feel like summer. I feel like summer. I feel like summer. 7 billion souls that move around the sun, rolling faster, faster, not a chance to slow down. Slow